How's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of Let's Try, and in today's episode, we're going to be trying out a game called Battle Bit. It is honestly such a big blockbuster that I think pretty much everybody at this point in the gaming community has at least heard of it. Maybe not necessarily played it, but it is a very interesting game to take a look at today. Now, the reason I want to take a look at it is, as you can see, there are 127 versus 127 player lobbies. Now, there, of course, there's 64 v 64 and there's 32 v 32. But besides that, besides the very large player caps, it is a game where accessibility is pretty top on their list of things that they're pushing for. Uh, because the developers who are behind this they're a small three-man team, and they have just done amazing things because they came at it from the intent of when they started playing, they only had crappy laptops and they didn't fully have access to the vast majority of Call of Duties and Battlefields that were available, which is fully understandable. So they implemented Roblox graphics, if you will, and they're not actually that bad. I would say they're a step above Roblox, but overall, it's really good. You can have massive lobbies. You can have pretty good destructibility on the maps. It's honestly, it's pretty good. Now, I will say the pros do come. Those pros do come with some cons, and some of those cons are kind of those classic Battlefield slash Call of Duty issues, right? So you have some issues with the gunplay. I don't think anybody's denying that. There's definitely some balancing tweaks that need to take place first. Now, there's also some vehicle tweaking that they need to do. Vehicles on some maps feel really strong, but on others, they just don't feel like they can handle it. I would say vehicles need a buff. With this many players and the way that you can freely, for the most part, run around with rocket launchers and C4, I strongly feel that the vehicles need a bit of a buff, or at least a different change at how it overall works. Now, there are tons and tons of settings, but one of the, I think the most important ones is there is voice chat. I have voice chat turned off for right now. However, we'll look at that a little bit later. For the most part, it's not too toxic, surprisingly. Because on average, I think they say they have around 50 to 80,000 players at any given time. I'm sure that number has probably fallen off a little bit here and there just because of player interest and things. However, from what I've seen, pretty much you can get into a server almost instantly. The community for it's fairly nice. As you see there, we just picked up two easy kills. There is pretty quick TTK, or time to kill, in this, which if you're looking for that in a game, this will definitely satisfy that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just such an interesting game to play. Like, I enjoy it. To me, this has scratched my Battlefield itch, because as most people know, Battlefield 2042 just didn't do it for one reason or another. It just didn't hit the nail on the head. It was pretty bad. And not saying Call of Duty is a bad game. Although I will be in the camp that doesn't like Call of Duty. I only play it for the zombies. So take that with what you will, or make of that as you will. Modern Call of Duty and Battlefield have definitely fallen behind. And honestly, I think the golden age of AAA developed games has fallen as a whole. I think we're in the age of indie studios, but also microtransactions to all hell. And here I'm just kind of patrolling the side, checking out, scouting some things. There are some other interesting components that should be noted, such as there's cross-team chat, which might shock you, because I know a lot of people are like, well, that's weird. But it really isn't, because if you think about it, a game like this should have cross-team chat, right? Because you can technically hear if somebody's next to you talking in a game, whether it's English or German or whatever it is. And definitely there's an argument to be had. Well, but what if it's a mil sim, right? You know, you don't want them hearing you, and oh, but that won't be realistic if you're playing on, like, say, a German team with an American accent. That's true, but if you're playing in squad chat, you're gonna have that. And funny thing about milsim is this actually started out as a mil sim. However, a lot of players see these graphics and don't jump to mil sim. And in case you don't know what mil sim is, it's a military simulator. So Squad, Hell Let Loose, Postscriptum. I'm trying to think of any others that I can immediately think of off the top of my head. But basically where TTK is pretty much one shot to the head, insta-kill, sometimes 2 shots to the body, but pretty much usually it's 1 shot and you're dead. And so you make every life a little bit more worthwhile, and you don't make it as gung-ho where you run into a room and you don't really worry too much about your positioning, nor do you worry too much about if you have a vehicle, because usually the vehicles do have some sort of cost to them. I already know what this guy's going to do. So we're just going to do that, because we already know what he is doing. He's going to try to get close and explode me, but that's why we're going to reposition. We are going to use shooting and scooting is our method of preservation for today. Now we are going to get into a little bit of gunplay here in a minute, but definitely the vehicles feel pretty good if you play them at a distance. I like playing the APC at a distance and kind of using it as a little bit of a sniper. It does have... I'm not sure why we're... Oh, that's why we're moving, because the collision in the water isn't perfect. So the APC is amphibious. It's pretty solid build. There are helicopters in the game, and so far the devs have been doing a fairly good job for just being 3 of them. I will say, it's definitely, I think, everything people expected for Battlefield. It does have its issues though, right? So with the pros come the cons, and those cons being just balancing things and some map tweaks that need to come. But again, all those things are going to come with time. But overall, I mean, the core gameplay is there. It's a really solid game. If you're looking for a game that will scratch that Battlefield itch, it hasn't scratched that itch for you in the last couple of years because of the last couple of games, both on the Battlefield side and the Call of Duty side, and just really the indie studio field as a whole. There really hasn't been a whole lot of just fast-paced casual games like this, because really you either have hardcore milsims, as mentioned earlier, you can play, but if you're not somebody who's into those for one reason or another, and you just want a fast-paced casual, or you just want to climb the leaderboard or whatever it is and just have fun and, you know, go pew pew to the enemy, this is your game. Okay, so we need to move, because the only thing I don't like is that you can jitter a vehicle very easily if you start hitting it, which I get the physics behind it, but again, this is a fast-paced casual game. I don't feel like there should be that much jitter. However, they do plan on eventually re-adding their hardcore kind of game mode to it. Whether or not they actually do, we will have to see. Oh, crap. Things that are annoying is you can easily get stuck on terrain like this, which makes it very problematic. Now we need to focus up a little bit and look where we're driving. I'm hoping there should be a ramp or something back here. Yes, there is. Okay. Then, of course, if you get damaged, you can repair it if you're an engineer, or if you have the repair tool. Otherwise, you can come back to your base and you find this little toolkit, and it shows you how much you're repairing, and it also refills your ammo, which is pretty good. Now, there currently isn't any sort of system where like you can build a like a resource node or something for these, which is kind of good. I don't think a game like this needs it. It was interesting to see that type of mechanic in Battlefield 5, but in this it doesn't really need it. So let's go ahead and just kind of rush an enemy position and see if we can move up a little bit. As you can see though, some of the hit scan isn't great, or not hit scan, but just hit detection isn't great. Both for a few reasons. I don't know if it's just the way they have the servers done, but it's not perfect. You can res your teammates, so if they die, you can pick them up. I don't know if there's a limitation like, oh, a headshot, because I know in like Hell Let Loose and things, if you get headshot, you're dead. There's no like reviving you. But as long as you have bandages, you can revive teammates, which is pretty good. There's also medics. So again, it is a fast casual with a few elements for a kind of more of that hardcore milsim crowd. I do think it will eventually evolve into something a little bit better and a little bit kind of more along the lines of a Battlefield or Call of Duty, where you have a lot of softcore gameplay. Definitely got to be careful watching our booty over here, though. Go ahead and get that spawn point taken out. Buddy, the idea is not to shoot me with your small arms, because I will see where you're at. See, so that guy's reviving his friend. And if he revives him, that's good for us, because that's another kill. As you can see, it also has that kind of classic Battlefield score count. One thing I don't like is when we're in the water and you get all this jumpy action going on. Which very much makes it annoying. Because I would love to push up there, but I can't. So we're going to push up over here. Buddy. Buddy. Holy crap. Okay, smallest profile as possible. I think we got two. Yep. Okay, we need to head this way, which means we need to keep just a small enough profile. Be far enough away that it makes it hard for them to hit me, but easy for me to hit them. That's basically the goal right now. Okay, completely missed, which is good. As you can see, a lot of these buildings are taking damage, and as we fire at them, they'll continue to take more damage. And then once they take enough structural damage, well, then that's when the fun begins, right? There are a couple moments where you do kind of get this, like, oh no, you're being hit, you're taking damage, but then it doesn't accurately reflect where you got hit from or how much damage you've taken. So as you can see, they're all trying to hit me, and none of them are going to be able to. We're just gonna pepper that third floor, see if I can turn. Some of the turning in this isn't perfectly smoothed out, but it's just smooth enough. As you can see, they're gonna keep trying. That guy's gonna really be pushing to try to take us out. So you know what? Let's reload. Let's push up just a little bit, because in this position we could really keep going for a while. I don't know how many rockets this guy gets, but it's definitely not that many. Want him a big juicy target. My goal right now is just to get people to fire some more rockets at me. I always hate when I'm reloading, because I feel like that's when a bunch of enemy runs. Alright, we're out of ammo. So let's fall back to the base. Let's leave this there, just so that way somebody else can use it. Now let's get into that gunplay. At least that's the game plan. There are 4 classes, so it does have the class system. However, unlike Battlefield 2040 Failure had their operator system, which was just terrible. This system more or less has similar problems, in my opinion. It doesn't have the operator problem, but what it has, in my opinion, is you get almost, I mean, there are differences. Different classes can use different guns, but a lot of the like gadgets and stuff are pretty like cross-classable, which is fine. But there are some unique. Then there is a bleeding system, so if you get wounded, you start bleeding, then you can bandage yourself. You are limited to how many bandages you have, so if you run out, you do have to kind of find a medic or find a teammate who can bandage you, which is nice. So there is that kind of camaraderie. You can go heal your teammates. There isn't a bunch of, like, necessary squad gameplay. So, for instance, I don't have to play with my squad if I don't want to. Or if I choose to not play with the team, for that matter. I don't have to. Now, it is obviously encouraged, and you should. But it's not super strict with, well, you're not playing with your team, so you're going to miss out on core gameplay or core things that you need to handle. And as you can see, there is a ticketing system, again, just like Battlefield. We have to kind of be aware of it. Now, to look at our loadout really quick, so you have a ton of different guns. There's a lot of upgradability, but what they got right was just by playing the game, you unlock the guns, the base gun. Now, if you want to get more attachments for a particular gun, you don't have to go farm a different gun or go farm some challenge. You just use that weapon, and then you get those attachments. So as you can see, there's tons of upgradability with different ranks and all sorts of things, and I love that they give you plenty of the information, plenty of the stats, and you can even see how it fires in the menu, which is incredible. And just the way you can change these things is awesome. So let's go ahead against that. This is secondary. So let's go ahead and spawn up here. So we have ourselves a little SMG, so it's pretty good for very close range, and I would say mid-range. I wouldn't try sniping with it by any means, although I guess there's nothing stopping you. That is one thing that they are going to be changing soon, is the damage fall off, because currently there is very little, almost none, which isn't great. But as you can see, there's a ton of guys here on E, so what I would say is, okay, well, let's go ahead, change out our weapon. And the amazing thing is the loadout on the weapon is weapon specific. So I know some people aren't going to like that. Some people like, oh, well, I want my recon to have this particular loadout on that weapon, or I want my assault to have a slightly different attachment kit. I don't know if that's something they're going to change, or if changing it on the different classes changes it per class. But from what I've seen, is it's a weapon specific loadout. So regardless of what class you decide to run, say this DMR on, all your DMRs, or all classes, will have the same DMR loadout. DMRs are my go-to in pretty much any game. They're high-powered. They usually do a pretty good amount of damage, what they need to do. And they're just overall really good. Now, I'm not great when I have to zoom in and out. Yeah. I do have to change out a couple of my attachments, because I'm running a 6x scope trying to do mid-range gunplay. Let's go ahead and switch to our medic, because I think our medic has our... Crap. How is it we need to just rush this hill? Oh crap, there were way too many fucking claymores in there. Careful, there's claymores in the building. So let's go ahead and turn that audio. Turn our team up just a little bit. By a little bit, I mean just turn them back on so we can hear them. Now, you will hear all sorts of random little tidbits. And what's really cool is when you die, you go hot mic, or your mic automatically will turn on. So it's push to talk by default. However, when you die, you get what is known as a death mic, or a death clip, basically. So your final words get said. Now, what's really interesting is you would think, oh, well, that probably doesn't get used a whole lot. Now, you can opt out of it. So if you don't want that feature, of course, you can opt out of it, which I like. You're not forced to use it if you don't want to. But, of course, it does make the gameplay more interesting, because... GG, bro. GG. But, of course, when you die, oftentimes, especially I find myself being like, oh, god damn it, you know, oh, this guy got me so good, or, you know, something or other. And what's really interesting is they can actually hear that, which I don't know why games are scared to put in cross-team chat. I'm not sure why they are. Because it's not like it's a hard thing to do from a development standpoint. It's like, I get, sure, you might not necessarily want that voice clutter, and it does kind of then, I don't want to say encourage, but it does push some players to alternative forms of communication, whether it's through Discord or TeamSpeak, or I don't know, just some other platform, just so that way they don't have to deal with, oh man, they're gonna hear our comms, which, you know, is smart. But at the same time, I feel like it also helps cut down on just random nonsense or senseless chatter. I've had games where they have cross-team chat. Oh damn, that guy got me. But I've also had games where they don't have it. And I found that a lot of the games that have it, very rarely is it like super annoying. Obviously some players do try to use it like strategically and just kind of mindlessly yell at each other. And then you can't ever hear anything. But again, very rarely do I ever hear that. And surprisingly, in a game that looks like this, you would think, oh man, it's probably full of kids. There's not too many like really annoying or really loud people in general, not just children, but like just people in general. Now you do occasionally usually at the start of a match, there's kind of some annoyance, but very rarely is it ever something where it's like, oh man, like that's just so annoying. Like auto mute. Now there is a feature, so when somebody's talking, you can mute them, so you don't have to go hunting for their name. So if they continue to screech and make all sorts of unpleasant noises, you can go ahead and mute them as they talk, which is nice. You can also report them right there as well, as you saw when that guy was talking. And so it does make it really good. And the developers have been taking a pretty proactive stance at cheaters and any form of that. Now, they do have an anti-cheat, but it's not perfect, as they've said. And they said their first line of defense is the player base. Damn, you got me, bro. And they pretty much said that their first line of defense is the player base. Yeah.
He's not even reviving you.
I know. No. Oh, thank you, bro.
What an asshole, bro. Yeah, crawl back to him. Revive him.
Don't worry, I'll revive you. If I could give you a bandage, I would.
Oh, dude. Am I going to get double teamed?
Geneva Convention? But yes, as you can see, there's all sorts of little interactions that you get that you otherwise don't see in games, which is really interesting, because it does create for dynamic gameplay as you're playing. It does change kind of how you fight a little bit, right? Because a lot of games, you're just mindlessly running around. Oh, there's enemies, mow them down. But in this, you kind of have that morality. I mean, it's not like, oh, but like you do kind of think about it when you're talking to some of these guys. You're like, oh, you know, I kind of feel for you there, or you understand some of the heartache that you get when you die, and it does kind of suck. But with that, I'm trying to think, do we leave anything out? We covered the vehicles roughly. We covered the loadouts roughly. There aren't a lot of game modes in this currently. So we're playing Conquest, which is a pretty classic like Battlefield game mode. I think that's probably one of the most classics. There's also, I believe, Frontline, which is their experimental version, or an experimental game mode. That is similar to like a tug of war. And what's really interesting about this game is it focuses heavily on players voting for the next game mode / map as well. So there is a lot of player input when it comes to the next round. So it's not like, oh, you're just on some mindless cycle, like why did the devs have this map rotation? Because players can basically choose to not play a map, which is really nice, because then it also gives feedback to the developers that, hey, players aren't playing X map, why? And more often than not, they look into it and say, okay, well, maybe it's because of the way snipers are able to just spawn camp, or maybe it's the way that the teams play. And what's really interesting is devs have been really proactive at providing like heat maps of like where players go, where vehicles go, what are some hot spots for where like snipers are sitting, things like that. And it's really nice to see that they're giving that level of feedback, because I think a lot of games would never provide that sort of data to the player base. Whether it's because they feel like it would be unfair, because then players would see, oh, well, this is where people camp, or this is where people are hiding. But I like that it provides that feedback, because then you get to see as a player, like, okay, well, this point's a really hot point. Damn, you got me, bro. And, you know, so it's just this interesting relationship, the dynamic that these developers have with the player base is a unique one because they don't have a publisher, because they don't have those sort of restrictions that other developers have. And really any indie studio has these same parameters of they're not bound by a publisher, they're not bound by the whims of an already existing player base. They're usually making their first, maybe second game, and they can pretty much balance it however they need to or however they want to, and they can respond to things players like and players dislike, and they can of course decide to share or not share certain specific details. It's whatever they feel makes the game fun, but it's most importantly whatever the players say is fun, right? Now obviously there is a line in that sand of, well, where do you draw the line between what players think is fun and what developers think is fun? Because on one hand, if you're a developer, you don't want to make the game incredibly silly, because there are some silly requests that players have in games. We've all made that one really absurd request in a game, like, oh man, I really wish this game had like ice bullets, or you know, something silly. That's just what came to my mind. Or, oh man, I really wish like this game had really cool skins, right? But then on the other hand, if you're the developer, you have that vision of, well, this game, it just wouldn't really make sense. Or, you know, that mechanic is cool, maybe we'll do a special game mode for it, but it's not going to be a core feature that we add or implement. And so I do like that they're willing to communicate with the players so heavily and just be open to everything. Alright, well, I think with that, we're going to call it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have, you guys know, do smash that like button. If you haven't already, consider subscribing, because it really does help out the channel. And let's see where we finished off. 33-13 with 36,000 score. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, leave those down below. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.